Trump says the war with Iran will be over soon, and very soon. But Iran has other plans. IRGC declares the end of this war is Tehran's to decide, not Washington's. Oil kisses $120 a barrel. The Strait of Hormuz is under threat, and global powers are begging for a ceasefire. Everyone wants this to end, but nobody is stopping. With America being criticized left and right for the aggression against Iran, and especially bombing a girls' school, Donald Trump stood before reporters and told them the war with Iran was nearly done. The President of the United States said Operation Epic Fury, launched on February 28th alongside Israel, was running ahead of schedule and close to its end.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Iran, you called it an excursion. You said it would be over soon. Are you thinking this week it will be over?
No,
You're talking
but soon.
about days?
I think soon.
Okay, and with respect
Very soon. Look, everything they have is gone, including their leadership. In fact, there are two levels of leadership, and even actually, as it turns out, more than that. But two levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about.
But Trump made clear that patience had limits. Soon after speaking to reporters, he took to social media to warn that if Iran moved to block oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, the response would be unlike anything Tehran had seen.
If Iran does anything that stops the flow of oil within the Strait of Hormuz, they will be hit by the United States of America 20 times harder.
Tehran did not wait long to respond. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in a statement, dismissed Trump's timeline and made its position plain. The war's outcome was not Washington's to decide.
The equations and future status of the region are now in the hands of our armed forces. American forces will not end the war. It is we who will determine the end of the war.
The IRGC went further, warning that not 1 liter of oil would leave the region if US and Israeli strikes continued, a threat that markets were already beginning to price in. Brent crude briefly touched nearly $120 a barrel on March 9th, its highest point since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Against that backdrop, several countries were working behind the scenes to push for de-escalation. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister, Kazem Gharibabadi, confirmed that China, Russia, and France had all reached out to Tehran, exploring the possibility of a ceasefire. Iran's terms were straightforward: no further acts of aggression. Whether those conversations gain traction is another matter. At this point, though, a ceasefire seems a distant reality. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi has said Iran is unlikely to resume negotiations with the United States following recent hostilities, citing what he described as a bitter experience with past talks.
After 3 rounds of negotiation, and after the American team in the negotiation, said itself that we made a big progress, still they decided to attack us. So I don't think, talking with Americans anymore would be, on our agenda anymore.
Some critics also echo the same sentiment. Ross Harrison, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, told Al Jazeera that from Tehran's perspective, an early exit from the conflict carried real risks.
Ending the war would only allow the Americans and Israelis to conclude that Iran is weak, which could encourage them to become even more aggressive.
Trump seems sure of a victory, but so do Iran and the IRGC. For now, in this war of attrition, both sides are standing their own. But for how long? Senior Iranian officials have warned that Tehran is preparing for a prolonged confrontation with the United States and Israel, while signaling that the conflict could escalate further across the region. Officials say continued attacks could also pressure Gulf states to push President Donald Trump to step back from the war. In an interview with CNN in Tehran, Kamal Karazi, a senior foreign policy advisor to the office of Iran's supreme leader, said diplomacy is effectively off the table for now. According to Karazi, the conflict will only end when economic pressure generated by the war forces other countries to intervene.
I don't see room for diplomacy anymore, Karazi said.
Accusing Washington of attacking Iran, even while negotiations were ongoing. He argued that meaningful talks could only resume if international pressure compels the United States and Israel to halt what he described as aggression against Iran. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi also struck a defiant tone, mocking the US military campaign and warning of further escalation.
9 days into Operation Epic Mistake, oil prices have doubled while commodities are skyrocketing.
Araqchi added that Tehran believes Washington is targeting Iran's oil and nuclear facilities in an attempt to trigger a major inflationary shock. Araqchi further said,
Iran is fully prepared. We have many surprises in store.
The conflict is already creating ripple effects across global energy markets. Iran's security chief Ali Larijani warned that stability in the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz cannot return as long as the fighting continues. Taking to his X handle, Larijani wrote,
It is unlikely that any security can be achieved in the Strait of Hormuz amid the fires ignited by the United States and Israel in the region.
His remarks came after France said it was discussing a possible defensive naval mission with allies to reopen safe passage through the key shipping corridor. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply normally passes through the Strait of Hormuz, making the waterway one of the most important choke points in global energy trade. Any prolonged disruption could have severe economic consequences far beyond the Middle East. Meanwhile, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Speaker of Iran's parliament, accused Washington of threatening civilian populations. Responding to recent statements by Trump, Ghalibaf said the US president had officially announced that he considers people's groups as targets for attack, calling it an admission by what he described as a terrorist American government. He warned that attacks on population centers would have uncontrollable consequences, adding that Iran would respond recklessly and without restraint if civilians were targeted. Military officials have also indicated that Iran is preparing to intensify its missile campaign. Majid Mousavi, commander of the Aerospace Division of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, said Iran will now launch only missiles carrying warheads exceeding 1 ton. According to Mousavi, the frequency, scale, and scope of Iranian missile strikes will increase in the coming phases of the war. An IRGC spokesperson separately said that Iran is currently using roughly 60% of its firepower to strike US bases and what it describes as American strategic interests across the region.